Hey everybody! Before we start today's episode, I would like to remind you that I recently started a gaming review channel. You can find the link to that channel in the description down below. It is labeled Konoha Reviews. On that channel, I review games, both old and new, and you can even request certain reviews by commenting on the videos on there. Please check it out, and if you like what you see, please consider subscribing and supporting me on that channel. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the episode. Jurassic Safari World. An amusement park, an experience for people around the entire globe to finally have a chance and see living dinosaurs up close and personal from the comfort of their own car. Ever since the completion of the park, guests have been flooding in and business has been going great. Despite some hiccups, including a hybrid dinosaur known as the Spinoraptor, everything else mostly went smooth. The park had a great variety of dinosaurs to behold. Over 50 species were represented, and shortcuts were provided for those seeking a little bit less of a thrilling experience, as some found the huge predators a bit scary to see that close. The park differed with the first Jurassic Zoo created by Konoha a long time ago. People opted for a new proper zoo to be made, and plans were already in the making. But it still would take time to prepare. In the meantime, the people could enjoy the dinosaurs like never before, from the biggest giants to the smallest of critters. The audience were even included in naming the dinosaurs if they were pronounced a couple or when a new baby dinosaur was born. There were still parts of the island that were considered to be off limits, since the dinosaurs took over the island once they escaped from the zoo and had evolved into their own working ecosystem, complete with a hierarchy including an apex predator. With man taking back control, the dinosaurs that were left to roam the wild grew more shy as the loud noise and smells were unappealing to them. By now, some of the people had laid their eyes upon types that they had seen ever since the first park was erected, including of course the T-Rex, Velociraptors, Triceratops, and Stegosaurus. But there were always rumors of dinosaurs that were kept secret behind the curtain. Through extensive artificial change with the dinosaur genomes, things could be manipulated, including how docile the predators were. The site where this was done was the so-called Site 10, Location E. Many of the hybrids came from this area, and all docile carnivores were brought through here as well. But what exactly was Site 10, Location E? And what was occurring at the other sites and locations? Interestingly enough, word came out from an area known as Site 10 Location B, which was a much smaller area of operations than Location E. B, among others, was where two carnivores were being created during the building of the safari park. Unfortunately, through complications within the DNA strand, the two carnivores were not completed in time before the park's opening, and the route had been laid just so that no more dinosaurs could be added. Location B had, as every other location, specific teams of both scientists and security assigned to them to keep things on the down low. Since dinosaur creation was done at Location B, reports came fairly frequent, unlike some other sites and locations where people even whispered they were doing absolute horrid things to both the animals and the personnel. In Site 10, Location B, the first of the two carnivores was the Proceratosaurus, a small two-legged dinosaur from the Middle Jurassic period. Its nasal crest was its most distinct feature, though it possessed a very lanky and slim figure despite being an ancient relative of the Tyrannosaurus rex. Its size demanded that it would live in a pack to hunt with. They would benefit from speed and numbers to overwhelm their prey, since their color scheme often was very bright and unfit for camouflage. The other carnivore that was kept and bred was the bigger Herrerasaurus. This predator was one of the earliest dinosaurs that roamed this globe, and is distinctive by its long and narrow snout. Its teeth work as razors to rip its prey apart, rather than kill it with the strength of its jaw. On first glance by some, they might be mistaken for bigger versions of raptors. They do also hunt in packs though, but there is very clear hierarchy where the alpha stands far above the others and does not tolerate any hesitation. Because of this though, there is often much tension to be found around the ranks on those attempting to become the new alpha. Alphas get to enjoy getting the first kill within captivity, but out in the open, it is to be believed that they would use a system similar to lions, where the females would hunt and then the alpha male would only have to worry about eating the captured prey, a luxury that the dinosaurs did not have in this case. This was way different with the Proceratosaurus, which showcased individual hunting attempts since their prey of goats were so small that overwhelming numbers were not necessary. A showcase of another duel was on display among the Herrerasaurus. It was so common for this to happen, in fact, that it often was the case that a new alpha was victorious, not by its sheer strength, but because its opponent was weakened by a duel that happened not too long before. Their reigns were often short, but sweet. As these two carnivores were created too late to join the safari, many of the scientists wondered what would happen. Then a message came in from Site 10, Location F. At Location F, they had also created a dinosaur never before seen in the park known as the Acrocanthosaurus, which was a carnivore resembling something like a stout T-Rex with a giant tail and large spines running along its back. Despite the Acrocanthosaurus being a sole hunter, they had created multiple of them and had applied the docile genome to have them live in harmony. Currently, they were in the process of performing tests on creating a large pen with only carnivores, and though their initial plan was to start with just the Acrocanthosaurus, they requested the other two types to be sent over from Location B, since the regular safari park had no use for them anyway. They currently had 4 Acrocanthosaurus, and they reportedly were working on creating many others to join inside the pen. The pen itself was very barren, flat without any trees, and only the absolute minimum requirement in water and food availability. The pen was purely for scientific purposes, and not for amusement, viewing pleasure, or to appease and give the dinosaurs a healthy environment. But apparently these dinosaurs still had it quite good compared to the living conditions at other sites and locations. Over the next few days, more and more dinosaurs were moved over from Location B to settle into their new home. The initial ones that were set loose quickly threw themselves at each other. They left their bigger brother alone, but realized that their smaller size made it possible to hurt one another. Since this would probably be happening throughout each cluster that was sent, the scientists and personnel required all dinosaurs that were sent over from Location B to be injected with the docile genes as well. And then over the next weeks, more and more dinosaurs were added to the giant pen. The number of all 3 types grew drastically, and though the population grew ever more, it was the Acrocanthosaurus that stuck out like a sore thumb due to their sheer size. One actually had to look closer in order to see the other 2 in between them. The color scheme of something like the Herrerasaurus was also a bit less likely to jump out, as some, though not all, had quite a camouflage color pattern involving dark green. One could clearly see that the smaller 2 were still afraid or jittery amongst the bigger Acrocanthosaurus, despite the docile genes holding them down. It might still be the instinct that let them know from deep within that these were animals that they should not mess around with. Some interesting things did start to show with this experiment. The ever so dominant Herrerasaurus alphas showed signs of fear or obedience when nearing an Acrocanthosaurus, thus diminishing his or her stature regarding other Herrerasaurus. This often initiated a duel for a new alpha, far away from any Acrocanthosaurus, something that was easier said than done. What was also interesting was that though the pen itself was huge, all of the dinosaurs stayed only on one side of it and seemed to express no interest in a large part to the opposite. Since it was just plain ground, it might explain their disinterest. If some vegetation had been planted there, some might have gone over there to use its shade to get out of the hot sun. And when one were to look closer within the dinosaur territory itself, one would notice something even more interesting. The dinosaur types had actually claimed parts of the pen for their own. Though the Acrocanthosaurus, from afar, dominated the plains and area as a whole, in reality, they claimed the plains for themselves, where they roamed around, and the water spot belonged to the smaller types, only being disturbed by a larger Acrocanthosaurus when it needed a drink. Because of this, it was always chaos and noisy at the water spot, with both types running and screeching along as they splashed through the water. It was remarkable how the types had claimed parts of territory to coexist, yet be out of each other's way. And then, as the scientists looked on at the unique ecosystem they had created, one of them whispered softly, "What if we introduce an aggressive predator to this system?"